What began as a conflict over the transfer of consciousness from flesh to machines escalated into a war which has decimated 1 million worlds. The core and the arm have all but exhausted the resources of a galaxy in their struggle for domination. Both sides now crippled beyond repair, the remnants of their armies continue to battle on ravaged planets, their hatred fueled by over 4,000 years of total war. This is a fight to the death. For each side, the only acceptable outcome is the complete elimination of the other.
Man, I still love that video. The resolution on it's just terrible, but holy crap, do I still love that video. Anyway, hey there everybody, Paler here, and welcome back. Today, we're going to be starting a little 4-part mini-series that I'm going to be calling Supreme Planetary Annihilation. Basically, I want to go back, and I was going to do a back in my day on Total Annihilation. I figured, you know what? Let's cover all of them. So Total Annihilation kicked off this little mini games. Can't call it a series because they're not technically sequels, they're technically spiritual successor. But it kicked off Total Annihilation, followed by Supreme Commander 10 years later, then Supreme Commander 2, and now the upcoming Planetary Annihilation, which is in open beta early access right now. Not open beta, early access, sorry. And I was, like I said, I was going to do these videos, but I figured I want to go in a little more depth. So I'm going to create 4 videos, one highlighting each game, their pros, their cons, why you might want to look at these, and what they did for the RTS genre. I want to go back, I want to watch that video again. I love that intro video. They do not make just awesome intro videos like that very much anymore. Everything's it was so generic yet honest. It was great, and to be completely fair, when you play the game, it does feel kind of like that video, obviously from an RTS view, but you just got these units going nuts. So what is Total Annihilation, and why am I so nostalgic about it? Well, as I was saying, Total Annihilation came out in August of '97. This was kind of in the heyday of the RTS genre. So a little bit before it, we got Warcraft 2 came out in '96. In '95, we had Command & Conquer rolled around. We got Command & Conquer Tiberian Sun in '99. We got StarCraft in '98. So this was like right in that real great middle of the PC RTS genre that we probably haven't seen again, and we may never see again. And unfortunately, out of all of them, this little guy got overlooked quite a bit. It did not have the marketing backbone behind it, and I think it was just greatly missed, unfortunately. But this game was brought to us by a little entertainment publisher or developer called Cavedog Entertainment. They made this. They did go on to make a kind of sequel called Total Annihilation Kingdoms, which took us out of the future and into the past. It was a fantasy-based RTS, wasn't very good, and after that they kind of went under. And since then, some of their developers have kicked off and come back, and that is where Supreme Commander came from. That was actually done by not Chris Roberts. That's crap. That's Star Citizen. I'm sorry. I'll think of his name for the next video. But two of the people that were on Cave Dog went on. One went on then to create Gas Powered Studios, who did the Supreme Commander series, and now another one is doing the Planetary Annihilation series. Basically, they were unable to get the rights to the original Total Annihilation, and if you see them when we do get to them, you'll see right away there's no qualms about it. They are spiritual successors to this game. Why would they want to make a spiritual successor to such an unknown game, you may ask? Well, it's because while the game may have been unknown, it may not have been a sales success. It was a critical success, and it actually did some great things for the RTS genre. Whereas a lot of the other games focused on balance and just getting the right amount of units and the right amount of, with the right stats and everything out there without overdoing it, Total Annihilation decided, or Cave Dog decided with Total Annihilation, we're going to go big. And if you look at, Warcraft 2, now don't 100% quote me on these numbers, I'm just trying to pull them out of my head. Basically, you had a population cap of, 150, right? And, if you created a paladin counted as 3 against that population cap. If you created a battleship counted as 5 against that population cap. So although you had a population cap of about 150, by the time you were done, you were probably fielding an army of around 80 or so. About 3 or 4 squads, hotkey groups of troops. And, Command & Conquer used a very similar idea. I don't remember at all what their number was, but as you went up, the higher tier guys had more of a percentage cap against your population and everything. Well, Supreme Commander said, Supreme Commander, Total Annihilation, said, we're going to just take it and we're going to say, you have a 250 unit limit cap and everything counts as 1. However, what we're going to do is we're going to make it that things require either certain structures to be built first, we're going to require things to take longer, and we're also going to make every building and construction unit you put count against that 250 number unit cap. So what this means is, in a larger, more drawn-out multiplayer battle, skirmish mode, which is what we're watching here, or perhaps in a very tough, one of the later campaign modes, which we'll get to in a moment, you'd have somewhere around about 50 to 60 structures, around 10 to 20 construction units, and then somewhere around 180 or so units on the battlefield. But 180 compared to 80, we're talking a pretty big step up. We're talking more than double. And to watch 180 units march across the battlefield was just amazing. I loved it. It was so much fun. And then you had turrets fire and things were exploding when these robots got hit. They didn't just fall over dead. No, they exploded into massive chunks and everything. It was just terrific. But they didn't just do it in terms of the unit cap. They also went ahead and did it in terms of the number of units in the game. So the base game, there was Total Annihilation, and then there was expansion, the core contingency. The base game, Total Annihilation, actually had about a total of about 60 units in total. 60 unique units. Roughly that. There was about 30 on each side. And normally when you get to something like that where there's 30 on each side, we've seen this in plenty of generic RTSs where it's just a reskin guide. Same stats, same everything. A footman is a footman on all sides. They just wear a different color helmet or something. No, that wasn't the case with Total Annihilation. It went ahead and it had 60 completely new unique units. There was some minor crossovers, like both sides would have a heavy tank, but their heavy tanks would have different strengths, different weaknesses, and so forth. One would be more ranged, slower attacking, but it would be a faster mover, so it would be designed for kiting units around, while the other one was like a double barrel heavy tank that was designed just to slowly push the lines. It could take on turrets and everything much quicker, or much easier. So while they were both heavy tanks, they were used in two different manners. And this was just the beginning. So then the core contingency came along, and it added about another 30, maybe more, another 20 units, about 10 more units to each side. So now we're up to about 45 or 50 units on each side. We're approaching 100. Then Cave Dog went nuts, and they opened up this competition online, and it was for both maps and units, where I believe every week you could submit your unit, and the community would vote on it, and the unit that was the highest rated unit was created and put into a download file that you could then put into the game. And this went on for about 2 years. By the time they were done, there was somewhere around 200 or so additional units you could download. And through a resource, you just put the file into their mod or their resource folder, put them into the game. Now, don't get me wrong, not all of them were great. Some of them were outright broken. Some of them were junk. Some of them were unbelievably OP, and you couldn't use them in a competitive game at all because they just broke the balancing of the game. But out of those 200 units, there was an easy 50 or 60 ones that were fun and brought about unique concept to the game that was not there before. They also did this with maps. There was like 200 additional maps you could download and play, and these are created by the community also through a map editor. Well, that's just the beginning there, folks. There is still, to this day, a community that follows Total Annihilation. They're not all that big, but they're still active. And it's called Total Annihilation Universe, or TAUniverse.com. If you go over there, they have up to October of last year, October of 2013, they actually released an unofficial patch for Total Annihilation. I'm actually running it here in order to help with the renders, the resolution and everything. And they've also been compiling and adding units. And you can download, I want to say, over 3,000 units for the game. Now, you would never want to go ahead and download and put all of them in there. It's just too much. And to be honest, I didn't get into doing all of that. I didn't have time to go through all the mods because there's about 8 or 10, 3 really big, well-known mods for it. And then there's another 5 or so mods out there for the game. And I just didn't have time to go in all that. I wanted to show you, for the most part, the base game. But there's about 3,000 additional units you can get, and you don't want to ever put them all in. But boy, there's just so much unbelievable content here. All right, before we get into all that, let's talk a little bit about the single player and the campaign. Because to be completely fair, I didn't have very good internet at that time. I couldn't get on multiplayer servers, so I mostly played skirmish and single player. And some of this may be nostalgia, but to this day, I would still say Total Annihilation has the best single-player campaign I've ever played. And that's even going up against StarCraft. StarCraft 2's was definitely more cinematic, had better cutscenes, but the missions did not stand up to it. First, the amount of missions. Everything with this game was go big. 25 per faction on each side in the base game. 50 base missions for the single-player campaign. And they weren't just the same but flip-flopped. You know, it wasn't like Titanfall did, where you play the first 9 and then you flip around and you play the same 9 again on the other side. Nope. These were 50 uniquely created missions on both sides that followed a story. And a story that, at the time, I at least found interesting, and I'm probably going to go back and replay it again. It's about 2 factions fighting for survival, trying to eliminate the other, chasing after lost technology that could give them the advantage, and so forth. And it was just very well done. Then add on to that, as I said, there's an expansion, the core contingency, which added an additional 12 missions to each side. So another 24 missions. So now we're looking at basically 75 missions just in the base game. And as I said, there has been a modding community. They've added more single-player missions. But we don't see this anymore in games, much less RTS games. These unbelievably well-done campaign modes, single-player campaign modes. And it was just terrific. I still put it up there and say this is one of the best. if not the best RTS campaign ever made. Okay, let's bring it back down a little bit and let's talk realistically. So, as I said, the game did come out back in 1997. It is 16 going on 7. It was August, I believe. So it's a little over 16 years old. Almost 17. And, or no, it was October. That's right, October. So, a little over 16 years old. Sorry. And it is definitely showing its age. There are mods and everything that patch I was talking about. I had to use that in order to get it to reliably run at 1080p. Word of warning, so you're going to keep seeing, I believe this is going to show up in the final video, my Fraps box keeps showing up there in the top right, showing 6 something, whatever my FPS is at the time. I apologize, it's just a 16-year-old game. I'm having a tough time. It took me 5 tries just to get the thing to capture. I had to modify things to do that. So you're going to get some things like that. It also lacks like the 1080p. I'm actually not even capturing at 1080p. I'm at, I believe, 720 is what I set it to, because the game was not designed for that resolution. So if you run at 1080p, you can perfectly play there, but you're zoomed out so far that it wouldn't have been very good for the video for you guys to see. It's better to play that way, but for an entertainment purchase, in order to see the units and what they're doing and they're flying around and everything, it was better to do a lower resolution. So you got those old technical complications and so forth. You can currently buy the game off GOG, and it comes with the expansion and everything for $7 or $6, $5.99. And with that comes all that base content that I was telling you about. It comes with the base of about 60 units. It comes with the 74 campaign levels. It comes with all that, and then you can go ahead and you can download and install it. Now, this is definitely not going to be for everyone. If you're an RTS fan and you did not play this, you owe it to yourself to go back, pick this up for $6. Go ahead, get the patch downloaded, mod it out a little bit, and give it a run. You can still find multiplayer games of this running. It is that good, that well liked. Once you have it running, once you get beyond those basic technical difficulties, and for reference, this is running on my Windows 7 machine. I didn't change anything of that. I just had to update it and then go in and run it in compatibility mode. Do a little bit of finagling with it. The main issue was just getting Fraps to capture it. DxToR didn't touch it. So there's no major problems getting it to run on a 64-bit Windows 7. It worked just fine. After that, there are some definitely aged signs. That's the wrong way to put it. There are definitely parts of the game that have not aged well. The units and all of that are perfectly fine. Where it kind of lacks is the GUI and the ability to zoom in and out, which we will see come in Supreme Commander in the next video. Your screen is always stuck to this type position, and being able to see more of the screen would definitely be helpful in order to move around these massive armies that we're going to have rolling around here soon. Also, only being able to have 6 units on your bar, or your build bar on the left there, and having to slick through all of them can be quite slow, especially where later on you're going to be dealing with 40 or so units per faction. So it's a little clunky, a little rough around the edges, but it still runs just flawlessly. In fact, I would say it runs better now than I remember running before. That may be because my computer before, once I started getting up around 400 units on the map, my computer couldn't handle it. That old, what we were running, probably about 512 megabytes of RAM, couldn't handle that many units. So that's the biggest problems. You may have other little problems with the textures and everything. I had a little bit of a color issue, which turned out to be my Aereo theme for Windows I had to turn off. Nothing major. Took me, other than the capture effects, it took me about 20 minutes to get everything running just fine. So, let's go ahead. We're going to move up ahead in here a little bit, and we're going to just see some of what makes Total Annihilation so great. And it's, as I was saying before, it's not the balance, it's not anything spectacular. It was or I'm sorry, it's not the competitive balance or anything like that. It was just these spectacular battles of your massive base going up against these massive armies, these huge artillery cannons. I'm going to try to make one of these, and I'll make sure I cut it in here before I'm done. The faction I'm playing right now gets this 8-barrel rapid-fire heavy artillery cannon. It takes, in real time, about an hour to build. Oh, let's go back. Apologies, let's go back a little bit. There's a lot to talk about here, so I'm getting ahead of myself. The biggest problem with this game, and probably with all of the games following up, we will see in Planetary Annihilation, but in this Supreme Commander and Supreme Commander 2, is how long it takes to get to the interesting stuff. Let me explain. So basically in Total Annihilation, there's 2 tiers of tech. You start off with your single commander. As you saw in the beginning of the video, I had one commander and I moved him around, I started building my stuff. And he can build tier 1 tech plants, which is your air, land, sea, and vehicle, right? From each one of them, you can then build a tier 1 construction bot. So the air factories can build tier 1 air construction bots, which you see are my aircraft circling that are building other things. These ones right here that are circling around and building stuff. Those can then build a tier 2 air factory. From the tier 2 air factory, you can then build more stuff. So the tier 1 air factory can build just the basic 4 aircraft outside of the construction, whereas the tier 2 air factory can then build basically another construction unit, a higher rank construction unit with more options, and a whole nother set of about 8 or so different aircraft. So when they balanced the game out, in order to get to the higher end aircraft, what they did was you have to build basically 3 things. You have to first build the factory, then build the construction unit, then build the second factory, then you can finally start construction on the higher rank aircraft, which then take a certain amount of time to begin with. And they balance the game around the combination of this and then the build time and the resource cost. And the game just kind of drags on. It can be very slow. In fact, this entire video that you've been watching, I've been capturing at 10 times speed. Right at the very beginning, you might have seen it. I increased the game speed up to 10x, and I've been playing at 10x the whole time. And it's probably the best way to play the game. Otherwise, we would still be way down in tier 1 stuff. Currently starting to get some of the bigger things going on and everything that are going to make it a little more interesting. So, that's the biggest problem with the game. Once you get used, though, to running at 10x speed, it feels kind of normal. Occasionally, when I first started back up, the first time I was playing into this again, after not playing it for 12 years, I went for 5x speed just to get the feel of the controls down, and once I had that down, I went ahead and kicked it back up. In fact, you might have seen for a moment there, I was getting hit by enemy aircraft and I had no way of defending myself. That was because the game speed was running faster and the AI was just outperforming me at that game speed. Once I got everything rolling, though, now we're coming back in and doing pretty well. Okay, so, as I was saying, that's the biggest problem. There's a few little technical issues with the resolution, with the color scheme and everything that can be overcome with the unofficial patch and about 10-15 minutes worth of work. The game speed, you can increase it. You just kind of learn to deal with it and run it at the higher game speed and so forth. But that's going to be the big turnoff. Now, once you do this, though, and once you get invested, the scale of the battles, of the land battles, is just amazing. And to be fair, so are those that will come up in Supreme Commander and Supreme Commander 2, and hopefully in Planetary Annihilation. But that's what really, as I was 14 at the time of this, sending my army of like 100 tanks with another 100 aircraft covering them over the air, covering them from above, with artillery shelling in from behind and nuclear missiles going off, and my own anti-missile defense shooting down incoming nuclear missiles. It was just fantastic. And it did something that I can't... I love Brood War. I love StarCraft. But there were very few things in StarCraft that did this. Maybe getting a full fleet of battle cruisers together and moving them in was pretty darn awesome. But you didn't get to do that all that often unless you played Big Game Hunter because you ran out of resources. There's no running out of resources here. In fact, so the game is based around a 2-resource construction system, as are a lot of these old RTSs. For this, it's metal and energy. Metal can be placed down that you get these little metal miners, and you'll find metal deposits. And you place your metal extractor down there, and it will mine metal forever. It never runs out. It's not a finite resource. It just mines. Now, actually, on this map, we are fighting on one of the enemy planets, which is completely made out of metal. So I didn't even have to find the resources. I could just put down as many extractors as I wanted, wherever I wanted. And that's what you might see, those lines on the right-hand side of my map, my little base there. Those are metal extractors. They're doing that. And then you have power generation also, or energy generation, via either solar plants or wind turbines. There's also hydrogen, or not hydrogen, but thermal generation plants and everything. And all of these are infinite resources. So at no point will the game force you to be like, alright, we ran out of resources, I guess whatever units we have, we fight until it's done. No, it'll just keep on going, which is a good thing and a bad thing. It means there was no way to balance the levels around a certain amount of resources or anything. But this allowed for the game to really do what it did best, as I was saying, and I keep trying to get into massive battles of just units running over each other, tank columns with air cover, and everything. And I don't know if I can even say much more than that. You're either going to be somebody that is into RTS games, and if you are and you have not played this game, go pick it up. Go to GOG, download it, you will love it. If you're not an RTS fan, this isn't going to change your feelings about it. But you may want to watch some of the better players of the game play it. You might want to look it up there. They do play it, not competitively, but there's playing of it going on, and you might see some really awesome battles. As for some of the mods, there are some very interesting ones that kind of convert this over to what Supreme Commander eventually becomes. They add in another tier of units called experimentals, which is the big thing Supreme Commander ran off of. And then you get these just massive powerhouse units that one unit can take about an hour to build. For me, I never really got into that. I loved my Vulcan cannon and my Big Berthas. The Big Berthas are the stand-up cannons you can see on the left there. I'm going to go ahead and at some point I'll jump ahead and show you my big there. We'll put that in there. The massive 8-barrel, I think it's 8-barrel, rapid-fire cannon. Anything that comes in range, it just decimates as long as you have the power to supply it. And when it starts firing, it just drains your energy resources like you wouldn't believe. It's just this wall of energy going down. It's alright, Power, take the fan goggles off. I don't know, it's awesome. Sorry, fan goggles back on. I love it. Well, there you have it. I think we have a pretty good look at what I believe is one of the greatest classics of the RTS genre. What I hope Planetary Annihilation eventually really can emulate the scale and the scope of this. And yes. So, this has been Supreme Planetary Annihilation Part 1. I hope you enjoyed this. Come back for Part 2 where we take a look at Supreme Commander. This has been Power. Thanks for watching.